Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Cookbook. I'm your host, Iris Goldfeder. And today I am very excited about our guest. And as you know, I'm excited about all of our guests, but I'm super excited about our guest today. We've just met recently. We're in a group together called The Dames. You've heard me speak about that before. And Jen is just a very dynamic and no bullshit person. And because of that, I just love her to death. So I'm going to read her bio and I'm going to bring her in. Okay, so recognized, and now you'll see why she's badass too. Recognized by ABC, MSNBC, and TEDx, Jen Coken is a comedian, coach, speaker, and imposter syndrome expert. And how many times have we been speaking about that? She transforms women executives and founders from being stuck and fearful of making the wrong decision to owning their expertise, having confidence in the direction they're headed, and the courage to be with the uncertainty. Fortune 1000 CEOs to seven-figure founders trust Jen to shake things up with no apologies, no limits, and all the laughs. So with further ado, let's meet Jen.
Hello.
Hello. So you are one of my favorite people that I've met recently. Well, that night that we spoke, you were a couple of glasses in, and it was
yes, that's right. It was like a random phone call, and I'd already had two. I'm like a 2-drink maximum gal, and I'd had 2 drinks, and I was like,
right.
"Slow your roll, Iris. Just so you know, I've had 2 glasses of wine. All bets are off."
Which was great because I'm the same way. I may have a glass and a half, and I'm done. So I get it. But, one of the things that kind of blew me away was yesterday, on this podcast, I've had coaches and a lot of people speaking about imposter syndrome. And you put a post up on LinkedIn yesterday, and this is being filmed on July 21st, because this will be aired later. But you put a post up on LinkedIn about imposter syndrome that literally, I kind of laughed my ass off at it because you pretty much debunked it. And I thought that was phenomenal. So let's just talk about that.
You want a reenactment?
We can do a reenactment, but also, I want to hear your story and all that.
Yeah.
And we'll go with that. But yeah, I definitely think that you should definitely.
Well, let's talk. Yeah, because it's funny, there's times when I do video, which mostly I do video on Facebook, but I was specifically wanting to put that on LinkedIn because it is a business, this is very much a business platform. And so I woke up yesterday morning, I'm like, for whatever reason, I opened my eyes. The first thing to me was, I'm so sick and tired of people telling me other people have told them they have imposter syndrome, because I hate when people label each other, number one. And number 2, imposter syndrome doesn't exist. Like, this is a peach, right? This is what I did yesterday. It's a peach. Why is it called a peach? I don't know.
No.
Some person, probably a dude, called it a peach. It's probably some Latin phrase, French phrase, whatever. But somebody,
like ass or something.
I don't know. Yeah, could be. But somebody made up the word. Right. Internet wasn't a word before the internet was a thing, and somebody made up that word. Twitter, tweeting, StreamYard, LinkedIn people made that. Am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Oh yeah, you can say whatever.
Broadcast. People made that shit up all the time.
Right.
Imposter syndrome is made up words. They're made up by 2 psychologists. You're going to say something?
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, by 2 psychologists back in the 70s who were researching why people who were really high achieving and very successful still thought of themselves as a fraud. Now they're researchers, right? And they're in academia. So academia likes to name things. Scientists like to name things. So they named it imposter phenomenon. And a syndrome is a medical diagnosis. So imposter syndrome is not a medical diagnosis. It's truly a phenomenon, meaning it's an as lived experience. And that as lived experience is just a frickin' amygdala hijack. There's science behind your brain, your amygdala, that reptilian part of your brain that governs fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. There's a moment that's the brain's job, is to predict terror, to predict the future. But the brain's a crap prediction machine because the brain's never dealing with reality. So when they created this experience or this tag of,
what do you mean the brain is never dealing with reality?
Oh, well, your brain, the brain, it's not even your brain because every brain works the same, is only ever dealing with its filter of what's actually happening out there. Through your own experiences, through your past, through your history. So the brain, that's the brain of the thing called you. Its job is to keep you alive. So 40,000 years of making sure that Homo sapiens stayed alive, and why you and I are talking and cave women Boogada Boogada isn't hosting this vlogcast is because
or maybe we are and our brains are perceiving it differently.
Say that again.
I said maybe we are and our brains are perceiving it differently.
Yeah, very much so. But the brain's whole point is to keep you alive. So it's absorbing information to make us more comfortable. Wow. You know, it's 92 degrees, I'm in Annapolis, Maryland. It's humid as hell. There's actually a heat advisory today, an air quality advisory. If I went outside, I would be starting to go, oh, the heat, and I'm going to compare it to something to make me feel better, to make me feel like I can absorb this information. So neuroscientists have shown that the brain is never dealing with reality.
Wow.
And 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day on average from any human, 80 to 85% are negative. So the brain's thrown to negativity because it's trying to predict danger. Except the brain can't predict between real or perceived danger because it's only ever dealing with perception. So my point, I know I've said a lot, but my point yesterday was, you know, the imposter syndrome is about as real as this peach. So if anybody ever says to you, you have imposter syndrome, I want to go peach, by the way, you tell them you couldn't because that shit's made up.
Wow.
And the only time to say, okay, is so that it's a framework for you to look at how you're dealing with situations, how you're dealing with other humans, to go, okay, wait a minute, let me look. Do I feel like a fraud? Am I questioning and doubting myself? What's the source of that? Where's that coming from? And that's the work I actually do with my clients to help them identify those triggering events. Now I want to eat the rest of the peach, Iris.
Go ahead, eat the rest of the.
Okay, I'm going to eat the rest of the peach while on air.
You can do so. You know, Fabienne had Theo on. I don't give a shit. This is real. This is like real life. If my dog comes in here and starts barking, that's how it is.
All right, cool.
I may be echoing a little. Let me knock that down. See? On cue.
The dog was called. My cat is currently just on its own in its bed.
But I don't know if you can see my ring.
Yeah.
Can you see that? It's the tree of life behind you.
Oh, really? Oh, I love it. This, can I tell you about this? This was actually,
I don't know if you can
that's awesome.
There it is.
There it is.
If you could, yep.
So this was made by, I saw this on Facebook, it's $50. And this woman was selling them. She started an orphanage in Haiti and taught the kids, I think she uses machine tools, how to carve these out of oil drum lids in order so that they could make money and start a little business. And so I bought this from one of the kids.
Ooh, give me the information because I
have to find it. Yeah, you're not the first one, and I'm like, I'll have to find it.
The same thing. So I just got a weird email. Hang on a minute. So just because it's from Hayden and it says our call today. Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay.
I have like ADD. So actually, Scott Spann and I did a podcast, and he's an executive coach, and we're both Jewish. We both have ADD, and it is the funniest freaking. Listen to that one.
I'm Jewish, but I don't have ADD.
Well, I definitely have ADD, and so we're talking, and we're trying to keep to bring each other
like
back
focus. Yeah,
to the thing. But getting back to the imposter syndrome, phenomenon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's so funny because I have. I think we've all had those moments when we're doing something. We're like, we doubt ourselves for a minute, right? We're like, wait a minute. Like I'll be talking and I know my shit, but for a minute, something is just like, wait a minute, is that, is that real? And then I pull myself back. I'm like, oh, duh, of course it is. And I think in my opinion, what causes us to do that are those voices from the past that kind of come back and haunt us, right? Like somebody at some point told you, you don't know how to do that. Or, I've been doing this for 50,000 years and, I'm an expert and you're, this. And I think that for me anyway, that maybe that's where that comes from. And so when you said that it wasn't a real thing, I mean, I jumped in my seat and I laughed. I was like, yes, it's not real.
Here's the thing. The thoughts are real. What you're talking about, I'll give you an example. I'm actually, in the midst of designing a speech I'm giving at the International Meeting Planners Expo in Las Vegas in October on imposter syndrome. So my first love, his name was Keith. He wore the super cool brown corduroy coat and this blue like beanie, and he had glasses just like me. And I was 6 and I was smitten. And I know I was going to marry that kid because he had glasses and I had glasses, and not a lot of people had glasses back then, right? Except here was the problem. My best friend was in love with him too. How did I know? Because we both sent him notes. Do you like me? Yes, no, maybe. And he checked the yes box. We're like, okay, we can't fight among us girls at the age of 6. How do we figure it out? We're going to see who he kisses. We're going to chase him around the schoolyard, see who he kisses.
At 6? That's awesome.
6. So we do, and he kisses her and he looks at me and goes, ew. I was like, heartbroken 6-year-old, and at that moment, all the other kids, I felt like all the other kids were watching and laughing, and I ran away.
Oh my goodness.
That's my first experience of an amygdala hijack, because in that moment, the brain was threatened. And the human, in that moment, I was experiencing humiliation.
Right.
I was experiencing embarrassment, but humiliation is really key for me. That's what I've come to know about myself, is when I feel humiliated or think I'm being humiliated, that's when that fight, flight, or freeze kicks in. But for me, it's both and. I either run or I'm like in your face at 150 miles an hour. There's no in between, So wow. I'll tell you something that happened right before this call. A client is going through a lot of the company's going through a lot of people are leaving, people are staying. There's a lot of, not necessarily infighting, but a lot of stuff going on. And somebody wrote to me and said, did you say this to this person? And I said, well, I said this, same thing I said to you. And I don't like talking about this stuff on the phone or over email. Thank you was all I got back. I called and said, is everything okay? Well, it's not, because you slammed me or something like that. And she hung up the phone on me. And I was immediately triggered.
Right.
Because it was either run away or in your face, right? I went, wait a minute. They're going through a lot. She's going through a lot. She's human. Misinterpreted it. Sent her a nice follow-up email and said, I realized I could have added this in my email to you. I apologize. Didn't mean to add stress. Mea culpa. But in that moment, I had my faculties about me. Now, why I say it's that triggering event, most of us have like 3 or 5 of those that then carry on because we never distinguish them as a triggering event. We think what happened was real. I was humiliated. I did have my heart broken. So for you in that moment of doubt, if I was coaching you, I'd say, okay, similar earlier. What's a similar situation that happened earlier in life? Okay, now similar earlier, on, till we figure it out. And to a T, for the people I coach, it's usually something around the age of 9,
right,
9 and 12.
Yeah.
Like this experience of not belonging and something happening inside of that where people have decided they got to do it on their own. They can't trust their peers, things like that they now see manifesting today. So
right.
Why I say it's not real, that phrase, first of all, nobody should label you. That's only for you. And just like an operating room has particular language to give you facility to react quickly and be really good at your job. The only reason to look at imposter syndrome and think about, well, gosh, when does this come up for me, is to give you more facility and power in your own agency over your own leadership. Nobody gets to put baby in the corner. Nobody gets to put that on you. Got to remember it's made up. It's truly an amygdala hijack. And then the key is getting to those triggering events.
Wow. That's just so fascinating to me. And I recently uncovered that, and I've spoken about this before, that my trigger was something that happened to me at 7 years old. And my reaction was always to run away. So anytime I would be in an uncomfortable situation, I would run away, whether it was business or personal, whatever. I would, get out of that situation. And the interesting thing was when I found that out, it was such a fucking aha moment, because my whole life made sense. Like looking back on decisions that I'd made in business and relationships and whatever. And it was like, oh my God. So when you say that it could be that 9-year-old, it was the 7-year-old who ran. And it's so interesting because, we have these adults that that are like, oh, my childhood has nothing to do with it. Yeah, it absolutely does. Your childhood is why you are who you are today, right? I think all of our experiences make us who we are.
Yeah.
And
can I ask you a couple questions about what happened? You don't have to give me the details of what happened to you at 7, but here's what I found. So that whatever happened. What were the unwanted emotions that you experienced?
Anger, humiliation, and confusion.
And do you remember where you felt?
And fear.
And fear. So fear, confusion, anger, humiliation. Which one has the most charge around it, do you suppose?
I don't care. I'm transparent. My grandfather molested me when I was 7 years old for a year. And I ran away from home. And ever since then, and I never realized that, ever since then, something makes me feel crappy, something, whatever, I ran.
Yeah.
I don't anymore.
Right.
But I did for
a long time.
60-something years, right?
Now, let me say this to you. So if I was working with you as a client, I'd have you notice when that fear, humiliation, or anger, where you felt it in your body, because sometimes people don't have clear memories of their childhood or of that incident, but they have the memory of the feeling in the body, because the brain lies, the body doesn't. So sometimes, and our cells have gray matter, our cells have memory. Everything that's ever happened to us is stored in our body. And I want to park that for a minute. Ask me about that, because I'll share something I'm going through recently that has shown up for me. So sometimes people will notice when that happened, they felt like they got punched in the gut. So they may not. And I say to people, look for the triggers and red flags so that you can have agency in the moment to notice your thoughts as thoughts, your feelings as feelings. So in that moment, who did you become to make up for? And so you, because the brain's smart, it's going to come up with a strategy so you never have to feel the humiliation, everything like that. Yes, you ran away, but did running away also help you succeed?
No.
In any way? Okay, so there's some strategy though that you made up that actually helped you succeed.
Right. And so I ran away to my friend's house. I lived in Queens, she lived in Riverdale, and I hopped on a bus and I ran away to her house thinking they were going to adopt me and get me away from the horror that was my home. And they didn't. They put me on a bus and sent me back. But I remember that anytime I get any kind of that feeling, it's usually all in the abdomen, chest area. It's like this tightness of, and sometimes in my head. Yep. Sometimes I'll feel like a thing, but it's mainly there. It's like that unhappy gut thing.
Yep.
And when I feel that now, I know what it is from, but I didn't for years. And so I would get in trouble and I would feel that. And then I also noticed it for a while, and people say this, that it's such a familiar feeling that you put yourself in situations so that you feel that, even though it's horrible and it's terrible, you end up putting yourself in these situations. And I think for years I did. And now that I say I'm healthy, I don't.
Yeah.
If I feel it, I get the hell out of the situation. I'm like, this is not a good situation to be in.
And are you somebody who seeks out others to help you succeed? You're really great at partnerships, building team, creating networks, business partners, that kind of thing?
Yes and no. I'm great at building teams. I'm great at networking. I'm great at connecting people. I will probably not have another business partnership again.
Yeah.
So on that front, I think working alone has been interesting because I used to have that sounding board, and now I have a bunch of different sounding boards, right? That kind of help me with
like
it.
Through our network that we're a part of.
Yes, and I love it, and I love that I don't need that very close. So my producer and I, Kofi, who's producing this, we're really close. We're not partners, but we work together on a million projects. And he's my go-to guy for probably 90% of the stuff that I do.
Yeah,
because he's good. He's like really good at he's amazing at what he does.
Well, I'm bringing that up because you ran to your friend's house. That was your strategy to avoid that experience. So if you look back on your life, like, hey, I can see a lot of my successes, how good I am at partnering with people, networking, building teams. Not everybody's like that. Some people would have gone and hid in the closet. I have one client that I worked with at one point who her strategy was do it herself. So I always find it interesting because that's why I always say make imposter syndrome your superpower. Because however you became to make up for that feeling of insufficiency, is that the right word? Deficiency is what's helped you succeed. It's one of the strategies that's helped you succeed in life. For me, it was never put myself out there again, the way I did with Keith, just be number two in the background. And I've had a lot of success with pushing other people to the front, getting laws passed, working on legislation. When I went into business for myself, woo, all bets were off and imposter syndrome was like, bam. And I call it that because the SEO is great. And that's why everybody else calls it that too.
Wow. And that is like the perfect segue to what made you decide to become an entrepreneur?
Well, so it was a couple things, part of it when my mom passed away from ovarian cancer in 2011.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And as Jews, that's a big thing because we've been mucking up the gene pool from the get-go. If you're an Ashkenazi Jew, there was only 4 founders and they kept marrying each other. So we've fucked with the gene pool our whole lives, So yeah, we're more likely to get stuff like that. But when my mom, what's that?
I'm just laughing. Laughing.
So I always say Jews are like people from West Virginia. We keep marrying each other. That's what we do.
But we shouldn't say that. Okay.
I know we shouldn't say that. I take it back. It's because I'm a stand-up comedian. Sometimes I know that stuff. Sorry. Apologize. Take it back. So when my mom, when my mom passed away, I said to her, because she was misdiagnosed for a year. And that's what happens with women with ovarian cancer is they're usually diagnosed stage 4 because the symptoms mirror a woman's monthly cycle. If you go to my website, I've got stuff on there. You can see more about it, download it, educate yourself. Anywho.
My cousin had it. So yeah.
Right.
Go ahead.
So when that happened, I told my mom, I didn't want it happening to another family, another woman. I didn't want another family to have to go through what we went through. So when she died, I wrote a book, and that was part of my catharsis, my grieving. But that book was 7 rewrites over 4 years. And during those 4 years, I wasn't let go. I was fired from one job, my first time in my life. That was awesome. And was, made redundant, a 4 in the UK, from the other 3. And after the 3rd one, my book came out the next day. And I sat there and was like, what is the bigger message here? Because clearly there's something more for me to do. And I thought, so it was like accidental entrepreneur. I thought it was to have this platform to educate women. And that's what I did. The book became an Amazon bestseller. I was on radio, TV. And I did that really from like June of 2016 through almost the end of the year of 2016. But I was exhausted. It was a lot for me to manage other people's grief, speak to ovarian cancer patients and their families, just a lot. And I realized I couldn't keep that up because I was still grieving my mom too. And so I had been a program leader for Landmark Worldwide that offers the Landmark Forum and came out of the S training, I was one of their program leaders, leading seminars for them for 16 years and a coach for 2 years before that. And that's what I always loved, was empowering people. So I began to look to see, okay, I'm going to go back into coaching people. But just like I mentioned before, I'm really good at being the number two, right? I'm pushing someone else's agenda, leading with somebody else's content. But there I was trying to figure out who I am, and my voice is separate from Landmark, separate from my political career. And it probably took me at least from like 2016 through 2019 when I finally began to do research and figured out what I was dealing with was imposter syndrome. But the content out there didn't do it for me, because you can't manage your mind. And that's the 2.5, there's something like 5.8 million tips, tools, and tricks today on the internet to manage your mind. You can't fucking do it. Your mind has thoughts. The thoughts are mostly negative or repetitive. It's how the brain works so that you survive. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And that's when I used my own methodology on myself, and then began working with clients and distinguishing that they had this particular incident or trigger event. And once unlocked, they had a lot of freedom. And so my focus has always been on empowering women leaders. I also work with men. It just happens that if they because I'm, as you said in the beginning, I'm no bullshit. They call me the Velvet Sledgehammer. Sometimes they just call me the Sledgehammer. Try to deliver it with love. I'm not always
the Velvet Sledgehammer. That's like so funny.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. And so now, as I'm working with people, it's really about empowering leaders and empowering people to fully be themselves. I've said for almost 3 decades that really what I want, or 2 decades, what I want most of all is a world of people at home with themselves, who feel known, honored, and appreciated for who they are, and don't have to try to be like everybody else. And that's also a trigger for imposter syndrome, is comparing yourself to others, comparing yourself to how many degrees you have, thinking you have to know more, all those things. So it was sort of the accidental entrepreneur, but now I fully own it.
Right. And that's awesome. And, it's so funny when it's not funny, but I always say it's so funny and I don't know why. But when you say comparing yourself to others, I find that so interesting, because I think a lot of people go through life, using somebody else as a measure for their worth. And for me, I didn't graduate college. I didn't go to college. I went to college for like a week. And I got my GED. I mean, I'm an open book, and I'm proud of all of my accomplishments, because, I was in Florida at like age 15. My mother moved in with her boyfriend, left me alone. I used to be in the IGC classes, which is the intelligence gifted classes. As soon as she moved in with her boyfriend and left me alone, that was the end of that. I started partying. My grades went to shit. And at 12th grade, they were like, we're going to leave you back a year. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I never get left back. I was still a straight A student, but I didn't go to school. So the classes that, was like music and drama and, that. And it's funny because I would never talk about that. I was so embarrassed about it. And now I embrace it, because I took control of my own shit. I was abandoned. And rather than just completely not go to school, I did the things and I learned the things that were interesting to me. So English and drama and music and all of that. And then I went on, I got my GED. I got great scores on that. And then that was it. But it's just so, for years, I would compare myself.
Yeah.
Right. It was like, she went to college and she's not doing that good. Like it got to the point after a while, it was like, you have that degree and you're doing that. And then I realized it didn't matter, that what mattered was the effort that you put into yourself and to your own growth. And so for me, at one point, entrepreneurship was just inevitable, because I, like you, got fired. And my last job that I got fired from, it was like, I'm not going to just sit around and do nothing. I started a business 6 years before that. And that was that'll be another conversation. But when I started Gasstovecreative, I had just gotten fired by a certain cable company. I was doing advertising sales for them, and my number was way where it should have been. And they said that I was being fired for performance. I was being fired because I wouldn't wear a dress and I wouldn't smile and I wouldn't play the coy little female to get sales. I'm like, that's not what I do. That's not,
Right.
you know, how whatever. So they fired me, and then one of my clients and I started a business. And
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting what you're saying, because I feel like that for entrepreneurs, it's comparisonitis too. It's okay, you're doing that thing that way, then I should do my thing that way. Oh, that person is telling me to do it that way. And it's so not that. You got to
No.
figure out what works for you, what
And-
your secret
and then you
sauce is.
collaborate.
What's that?
What your secret sauce is, right? And then you can collaborate. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm at now. Is I'm in marketing, right? And I'm also a consultant on many different things, which, you know, if somebody is like, can you do this? I'm like, yeah, because I can, because I just figured shit out. So my website, if I put every single thing that I do on my website, which my new one should be live next week, it would be like, what doesn't she do? So I'm trying to, you know, put a focus on certain things. But for me, it's always been, it doesn't have to be a competition. It can be a collaboration. And everybody looks at it, not everybody, but a lot of people look at it as a competition. And it's like, if you collaborate, it can work so much better, because now you're a team.
Yep.
You're not fighting against each other. You're not, you know, doing this uphill battle. You're actually like working together and getting results together. And that's,
and cheering each other on and
cheering
championing
each other on.
which is what
Yes.
I love about the dames, is that we are straightening each other's crowns when the crown is crooked and when the crown is straight, and people are winning and doing great stuff. It's total accolades. And yeah, there may be some jealousy, but it's more compersion. It's more like, so happy for you. And man, okay, how do I get to that next level? And you can even call that person and say, how'd you do that? How do I do that? Could you give me some insight? What'd you learn? You know, there's just no competition.
Yeah, which I love. It's all, you know, that hand up, right? You ever see that?
Yep.
You know, that graphic where there's a woman doing a hand up and then on and on. That's what the dames is to me.
Yep.
It's just this giant hand up. How long have you been an entrepreneur?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like my whole life, but it's an entrepreneur's mindset, right? You and I both know there's a real distinction between an entrepreneur mindset and a CEO mindset.
Yes.
And the entrepreneur's mindset is, okay, I'm going to give you this lighter, which I don't smoke, but it's for my sage that I usually burn. And this little, you know, whatever this thing is, it's a little bit of rose oil from Bulgaria and some hematite. And I want you to go build a business. I'm like, far out. Let me go do that. How do I do that? And literally, I've started a lot of organizations from the ground up, including my first company, including passing legislation, including volunteer organizations, because I love that creative part of, all right, I'm like MacGyver, you know, give me this, and this, and we'll go figure it out. However, I'll tell you this, you know, one of the assessment that I use with the leaders and teams that I help bring from good to great is Clifton Strengths. And one of my top strengths is strategic. That's how come I think that way, as I can see the big picture and how the pieces fit together.
Right.
It's rough on my team sometimes, because I'm like, when you talked about being ADD, I don't have ADD, but I am like a squirrel every once in a while. Because I'm like, oh my God, that, oh my God, that, oh my God, that. And from time to time, my team will affectionately refer to me as the squirrel, until I realize that as somebody who has that mindset, I need people to bounce ideas off of.
Right.
Otherwise, I will start following 42 threads.
Gotcha.
To figure out which one works. I feel like I've been an entrepreneur my whole life.
Okay. So, but you did work for corporate before, pretty much.
So yes, and I've worked on the Hill. I've worked on political campaigns. I've run nonprofits. I've worked for a foundation. And the last job that I was laid off of was with BP. It was a subsidiary called Direct Energy, and I was setting up a municipal lobbying arm for Direct Energy Solar. So BP owns Direct Energy. Direct Energy bought the solar company that I was working for, and that was my job at the last point.
Wow. Interesting. Yeah. Wow. you've done so much. I had no idea. Well, because
Yeah,
when we spoke, we didn't really get into like.
No, yeah, we didn't. I mean, if you look at my resume, everything's about 3 to 5 years. And I really feel it's two reasons. One, because when you're on a campaign, there's an end date.
Oh, of course.
But it's also, I get bored. There's a point where I get bored. And when you're running your own company, you can't do that.
Right.
So
am I allowed to ask what campaign you worked on, or should that be offline?
So, no, I mean, I was chair of the Denver County Democratic Party. I ran for the state house in Colorado. I worked on the 2000 presidential campaign. I ran something called the Western Clean Energy Campaign. My job when I was hired was to stop 37 proposed coal-fired power plants from being built in the West, and we did that. And there was a guy from University of Iowa, I think, or it might have been University of Indiana, who studies grassroots campaigns, who got in touch with me and said he wanted to interview me. He's interviewing all these people. And from what he can tell, that was the most effective grassroots campaign in history. And how come? It's because I created coalitions and brought people together, because I knew it wasn't up to me. It's about the team and how do we build the team. But after we stopped, this is my entrepreneur spirit. After we stopped those coal plants, though, then it became a game of figuring out how do we transition existing plants to renewable energy, which was really kind of an administrative rulemaking process. And I was bored to tears. I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing this. Campaigns for me, it's really intense, and you have a beginning, middle, and end, and then you reach the end. So I have to create like mini campaigns within my company, but still stay in the umbrella of my company.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So if somebody is out there who's either in a job and unhappy and thinking of becoming an entrepreneur, or they're just thinking of becoming an entrepreneur in general, what advice would you have for them?
It's a really good question. I think the one key for me is always, are you trying to solve a problem that already has solutions out there? Because if you are, start to think about what people are already doing and how you can collaborate with them. It doesn't always require somebody doing something new. But I also feel like the other side of it is, what are you passionate about? If your passion isn't being fulfilled, then you want to get crystal clear on your vision, the way you want to see the world, which is really, in many respects, what you were incarnated to be here for. Like, what's your purpose? What's your soul's purpose? People refer to it as a midlife crisis. I've always referred to it as a soul life crisis, because somewhere around kind of lower 40s to like upper 40s, people start going, is this all there is? Is this what I'm here for? And start really doing that soul searching to figure out their true purpose. And if you can hone in on that, and then let me back up a second. Have you ever heard of something called Ikigai? Ikigai, it's a Japanese term. Igikai.
Yes, I was working with a quantum coach, and yes.
Yeah. So that is the intersection between what you're good at, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you can do, right? Yep. What you're passionate about. So if you're able to identify your Ikigai, then you stand a chance of starting your own company. Don't just start it to start it. Often we start it in response to something, and people sometimes refer to that as their why, but I feel like all too often the why becomes the reason, rather than truly what's your vision, mission, purpose, passion, that sort of thing. Once you've done that, then look at the impact you want to make, and you got to have a business plan. And so many people start their companies without a business plan. Work your way backwards. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Yeah, I was too.
Right.
Work your way backwards. And then I'm a huge fan of two books, The One Thing and The 12-Week Year. The One Thing, because you can't focus your attention on everything. Right. So you're looking at what's the one way you want to make an impact on the world. What's the one thing you're going to accomplish this quarter or this day? And The 12-Week Year, huge fan of that, because when we create goals for the year and a couple months goes by, we let them slip. Like, I've got time. But if you create your goals by quarter, then every day is precious, and you're really tuned into the result you want to produce for that quarter.
Wow. That is awesome. Okay, so people thinking about being entrepreneurs, I hope you're taking notes, because that's some good advice right there. And it's interesting because I found out years ago, probably about 20 years ago, that my purpose, I believe my purpose being on this earth is to be of service to others. And I had a spiritual awakening, if you will, about 2 years ago. And I was told I was a light worker and I'm supposed to be guiding people into their light. So again, it all falls into service, which is why I do what I do, because I truly believe that through marketing and through my consulting that I'm doing a service to people that is going to help better them. And I think that you're right. You know, the why becomes the reason. And for me, it was the reason that became the why. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Say more about that.
So I feel that why I do what I do is to help businesses grow, but also to help people grow in their business. And it happens organically. And I know that word is really overused sometimes, but it really does, because when I sit down with people and I guide them, there's like this, it's almost like therapy. It's like you see this aha moment in them. And I recognize it because that used to happen to me when I was in therapy. I would get that, oh, yeah. And so through that, it helps them be better people, be better leaders. And I'm not a coach. You know, I'm just there to help them do whatever it is that they need to do. So my reason for starting was because I wanted to be of service to people. My why became helping people. And it was a pretty profound moment for me, because it was like, oh, and so now I'm in a pivot mode on how to make the reason the why and bring that into the business, and clarity on, you know, what I'm doing so that I attract the right power partners and all that other stuff.
Right,
so that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I equate that to the distinction between vision and mission. So I would say being of service, yes, but then I'd ask you this question, or to think about it, and this is for entrepreneurs too, not what do you want to do, who do you want to be on a day-to-day basis? You know, how do you want to show up as a leader? And your vision is something that can never, ever be fulfilled. It's how you want to see the world, and you won't even see it in this lifetime. But you're giving your life over to it because it's what has you get out of bed in the morning. And then I always say, well, your mission is going to be accomplished in 10 years or 5 years, whatever it is. I'm going to empower this many entrepreneurs to have the right voice and messaging so people get to know their services so that they're successful, right? And then we get into core values, but I don't equate core values the way most coaches do. I look at the energies you want. So one of my core values is fun. If it ain't fun, I ain't doing that shit.
Oh, I agree.
It feels like work. Yeah. And I think about it in my body too. Like, does that feel heavy or light? Yeah, I don't want to do that. We're supposed to go hear some live music with COVID spikes and the 92-degree temperature. I'm like, I do not want to be outside. No, thank you. So instead, I got myself a ticket to go finally see Maverick later on tonight.
Oh, all right. You have to let me know how that is.
Yeah,
so
I will. I'll let you know.
Everyone's saying that it's great. So I'm not going to the theater right now. I mean, not the movie theater. We went to see, we were in New York last week and we saw Come From Away. Oh my God.
I've heard it's great. Yeah. I'm going tonight because there was like 4 people that had already bought tickets in the whole theater. So I was like, okay, I'm in a whole row that's empty.
Right.
I'll wear my mask. I'll be okay. You know? Yeah.
Yeah. We had our masks on in the theater. A lot of people didn't, but
yeah.
So now you're a seasoned entrepreneur, and there are a lot of seasoned entrepreneurs out there, especially in our group. And I feel very drawn to, I guess, to our group. The dames, I just can't say enough good things about it. It's just, it makes me, being in that group makes me, want to help people even more. And it gives me these aspirations, right? I see these like examples of amazing women, and it's just a great thing. But for the seasoned entrepreneur that's out there, what what hurdles have you had to overcome? Like if somebody's struggling with something right now, you know, and this is very general, but what struggles have you gone through that you overcame and you're stronger because of it and a better leader?
Well, I feel like there's that first, especially if you're a woman, you know, what is it? 12% of women-owned businesses even make it to six figures. So there's the struggle of getting to that six figure. Then there's really a cap on 250, 500, and then a million. And only I think 2% of women-owned businesses are over seven figures, which is just incredible to me, which is why the Dames came about in the first place. I think the biggest for me, this is what I'm dealing with now, is what I would call the upper limit. You know, if you have a, let's just say if you had a group of fleas in a jar with a lid on it, right? So you train fleas for the circus. They're only going to jump as high as that lid because they hit their little heads. But you know what's weird? If you take off that lid, the fleas still only jump as high as the lid. They're used to it. So it's recognizing that what you said something earlier, which is, you know, we're the sum of our past, right? We're the sum of the experiences that have happened to us, whether it's dramatic or not traumatic. We're the sum of all those experiences. However, the brain will use those experiences to predict what's possible in the future. And it's starting to notice how much the brain is predicting what's possible in the future. So that upper limiting, when you hit that upper limit, it's because the brain's predicting what's possible. So how can you as an entrepreneur continue to visualize where you want to be and let go of the constraints the past is imposing on your view of life, so that the future seems just totally wide open instead of predictable? And that's, you know, it's funny. Last year, I was talking to one of my coaches yesterday. She goes, you know, you manifested a house, you manifested this huge client, and then it was like you went back down your comfort zone. I'm like, I did. Now I recognize that, and I'm coming back out the other side. But I'll tell you, number one is meditation. It's meditating for 15 to 20 minutes a day and visualizing where you want to be in 5 years, et cetera. It is, you know, making declarations to the people around you who are going to hold you accountable. Like, I'm declaring I'm going to, you know, bring in 50K a month, or I'm going to have a 50K month for the next 12 months, or whatever it is. I'm going to sign 5 new clients. I'm going to launch a retreat, which is something I just did, which is super fun. But I think it's recognizing your upper limits and recognizing they're just thoughts. And then asking yourself, okay, if I removed all those limits that I've imposed on myself, really, who do I want to be and how do I want to show up? Because we think we're human doings, but it really comes back to being a human being. And there's a lot of people out there who are producing enormous results in 4 hours, 4-hour work week, in 20 hours, in 15 hours. You don't need to work hard in order to produce results. You want to always be tending to what your vision is, what your purpose is, and have a plan to implement, and constantly identifying those upper limits that you've placed on yourself and removing them and removing them and removing them and removing them. And I feel like at each of the stage of the game of an entrepreneurial lifetime or life, you know, work cycle, that there's going to be a limit you're going to hit before you hit 100K. There's going to be a limit you hit before 250, before 500, and before 1 million. Surround yourself with great people. That's number one.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You know, when I was a fledgling, I made sure that the people that I hung out with were either, you know, VPs or presidents, or I mean, I hung out with, you know, people where I was as well, but I made sure to surround myself with people that were more successful so that I can learn from them, right? And then next thing I knew, I was kind of with them, and people were hanging out with us to kind of learn. And then you go a step further, and it's, I think it's all very humbling, and I think it's all very exciting, and I think there's so much opportunity out there, and there's so much untapped talent out there. I think that there are people out there that have the potential to be an entrepreneur, or have the potential to be a CEO, and they don't realize it, or they're not confident enough, or they don't believe in themselves enough. And I wish that more people out there could because like you said, our brain is trained to think negatively most of the time. And I've been doing mindfulness for the last 2.5 years. And it's really changed my life in that I don't think as negatively as I used to. I'm working on meditating every day, Diane. Diane, if you're listening, I'm working on it. But I do exercise my breathing, and I do control what's going to trigger me and for how long. Like if something used to piss me off and I'd be pissed off for 3-4 days, now it gets 90 seconds.
I love
and
it.
If it's even bigger, then maybe I'll give it 10 minutes, but I dictate how much time
to say, yeah.
Right. And it's huge. It's huge. So now if I can just get my ass to meditate, I'll be that much better. But that I'm working on that.
I'll tell you one secret. Do it before you get out of bed. Wake up, set yourself up, do it before your feet hit the floor and you start checking your phone. If I do it that way, I'm sure to meditate on a daily basis. If I start doing stuff, forget it. All bets are off.
And you don't,
for the most part,
you don't get tired or like fall back to sleep or something?
No, I don't. In fact, it usually refreshes me. So it doesn't matter how much sleep I've had the night before, whether it's 4 hours or 8 hours, I feel even better after I do it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. You can, the Calm app is something that I've used, but there's on that app, you can set it for say 15 or 20 minutes, and you can set it like every minute, let it do a chime, or every 5 minutes so you don't fall asleep. So it wakes you up.
Wow.
If you're worried about that.
Diane, who's my mindfulness coach, Diane Titterton, I'm going to give you a shameless plug. She was my guest on last week. She has a list of meditations online. And then if you're a member in her group, she has even more meditation. And then she was sending me, when I was in New York, she was sending me meditations every day. So I have a shit ton of meditations that all I have to do is throw my AirPods in and, listen.
Put the AirPods next to your bed. Do it.
Yeah. Don't talk about it. Do it. Yes, 100%. So what do you have? What is something that you're working on now that you'd like to get out to the ethers so that people know that, to sign up?
Yeah. So I am launching an in-person retreat, which is going to be super fun here in Annapolis, September 21st and 22nd.
Ooh.
And if you go to my website, which I know they're flashing up right now, Kofi's flashing up, and you go to coaching and then drop down, you'll see something about the retreat. You're coming together with, it'll probably be like a dozen business leaders who are all interested in honing their vision and identifying one or two of those core blocks that are blocking you. And it's for business leaders and entrepreneurs who feel like they've plateaued in their business or just feel stuck, like they know what to do, but they're, for whatever reason, are just feeling stuck or feeling uninspired. So you're going to hone your vision, you're going to identify some of your blocks, but most of all, you're going to walk away with a Q4 action plan. And we're going to take you through exactly my methodology. So you'll walk out with that 90-day action plan. And if you want, you can be part of a group accountability program that we're going to be running right after that retreat. But I'm going to start doing these retreats every quarter, right before the next quarter, all inside of the 12-week year, to give people a community, to give people an opportunity to really go to work and developing that action plan. So when you walk away, you know exactly what to do and you don't have to question it or yourself.
Wow. Okay. And for those who are listening and not watching, that's jencoken.com, and it's JenCoken.com.
Yes. Yes.
And well, I want to thank you for you said an hour, and I'm telling you, it goes so
oh my God, we've been on an hour. Wow.
Almost an hour. I'm telling you.
Wow.
And every guest that I have on, right before it, they're like, wow, an hour. And I'm like, I'm telling you, because what I love about this, and this has become my passion project, because I love, and so does Skylar. Skylar wants her sister to get out of the crate, but I'm not ready for it, because as soon as I let her out, she's going to either shit or pee on the floor. So I got to get her, I have to grab her and put the leash on and get her outside. Skylar wants to play with her. But I love, learning about people. I love to be a platform where my audience, and it's small right now, but I'm hoping to grow it more, where they get to know more about people. Yeah, it's about entrepreneurs, it's about CEOs, but it's really about people's stories and having a conversation.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love talking to people. Obviously, I love talking, and I love, just getting to hang out with folks and doing it this way. And it's just a fun way to do it. So this has been my passion project, and because of this, we're now doing podcast production. So
Love it.
It's just one of those things that just kind of happened. I'm like, hey, we do this really, really well. The beginning is kick-ass. The outro is kick-ass. And, the format is great. So why don't we just add this on as a service? Bam, it's done. And, we already have, like one client in the hopper and, a few people interested. So it's just really weird how things happen. You think you're supposed to be doing one thing and then, well, maybe something else is kind of presenting itself. So this is my new passion project.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me on. It's been great to be with you. And Kofi in the background. Yes,
he's hiding out there in the background doing God knows what, but no, I'm kidding. He's getting ready to
producing the show right now.
I know he's producing, and he's also getting ready to DJ at some point. I know he's yeah, hello. He kicks ass. He is so talented at so many things. Videography, photography now, podcast production. He does websites. We do like a whole bunch of projects together. And I feel very grateful and, blessed that he's in my life. I tell him every day I appreciate him because I do.
That's great.
Thank you, Iris.
Oh, there he was. Just like what is it? The Wizard of Oz, the wizard.
Yes, it's like, pay no attention to the man.
Who's the man behind that man?
Yeah, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Right. So the last question that I always ask people that have been on is, what truly lights your fire? Like what is your passion in life? And it doesn't have to be business. This is business, personal. It's what lights Jen up? What,
two
gets
things.
You going?
Cycling. I love cycling, and I'm an avid cyclist, and I love being outside. I mean, it's really cycling, anything in nature, like hiking, camping, kayaking, that kind of thing. And the other thing is music. So I sing, and I know you're in a band, and I just love music, going to music festivals. And as I'm actually going to the Telluride Blues and Brews Festival in Telluride in September with my uncle, and we're going to camp in the National Forest. So we're like bringing two things together, which is
amazing.
Cool. Yeah, we both don't like crowds. We're like, okay, this is our agreement. We're going to camp in the forest away from people. We're going to go to the event and stand far away from people. At any point in time, one of us is like, run. We're just going to leave. We've had enough. Like, run, get out now.
That is so funny. That is awesome that you're marrying the two together. I think
so too. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And I said to Megan that we should have a virtual Dames talent thing, not a talent contest, but like a talent show. Yeah, right. Where we do karaoke or
we just have to get like Uncle Frank's barn and some old curtains and make a backdrop. Yeah.
Hell, I'll just do it in here. I don't care. I got this program called Car of Fun, right? So like karaoke, but it's Car of Fun. And when I was isolated, I quit my band like 4 years ago, and unfortunately it was for political reasons. It just got stupid after a while, and I was like, this isn't fun anymore. And like you said, if it's not fun, we don't do it anymore.
No.
So but I always miss it, right? So I got this thing, and I'm like, I got to get my voice back in shape, and so I did through this karaoke thing. And I would just be sitting here, and I actually have a video last year of when Skylar was a puppy. I was singing. My mom passed away in 98, and we used to sing Perry Como together, and I Love You So. So I was singing that, and Skylar's like, oh, barking. And then so she's like singing along with me. And then I got to a point, and I had my phone up, video, like videoing her, and she like walked away. And I'm like, well, that's rude. And I thought it was because of my singing, but it wasn't. She doesn't like the camera, so.
Oh, there you go.
But it was
camera shy.
Not anymore, but yeah, it was pretty funny. But Well, I love that you're doing that, and I can't wait to hear about it. I'm sure I will. So, and again, thank you so much for being a guest. And come on again. I think we should do this again for sure.
Yeah, I would love to. The next
We'll
time we can talk about the movie I'm in the middle of making. That'll be fun.
What?
Yeah. So my book's being made into a movie. My book's being made. It's called "When I Die, Take My Panties" is the name of the book.
When I'm writing this down.
What's that?
I'm writing this down. When I die.
And we are in the middle of writing the script. Not this weekend. The weekend after, I fly to LA to do a table read with actors, and then we're going to start putting the package together. We think we have an investor, and I wrote an original song for the movie, and still just working on finding somebody that will help me with the music. So maybe there's something we can collaborate on.
Oh, bam! You've heard it here first, folks.
Hey.
So, well, this has been. Now you blew my mind even more. Okay. We're going to talk after this. I mean, not
okay.
Right. We can talk more.
Yeah.
But so thank Jen. Holy crap! Like she does way more things than I even thought. And I want to thank you all again for hanging in for the hour. I'm hoping that this goes as fast for you guys as it does for us, because on this end, it just flies by. So I really hope that it's going fast for you. And thank you guys for listening. And don't forget to like and subscribe and share and download, because when you download, that counts really well too. And I want you to, look around and appreciate everything that's out there, and go out and find what lights your fire. See you next time, guys. Bye.